evening, everyone. It's your host, B. Smith tonight. How y'all doing out there? We got a phenomenal night tonight. Welcome to the Hub. I'm excited. We were not here last month, but we're back now in the month of September, and it's good to be back. I know you all see us on the first Friday of each month, but it is a Thursday night. We had to change things up for a moment, but you all know the Hub is where ministry and community connect, where we discuss health, finances, community education, and politics. I'm your host tonight, B. Smith, and we have a phenomenal topic tonight. We're going to be talking about human trafficking, the modern day slavery. And so we're going to have some great speakers that are be coming out tonight, and they have a plethora of information. So I'm excited about what they have to say tonight. I'm going to go ahead and introduce them one by one. They are from the Transitions Violence, I want to say shelter. It's not shelter, but Transition Violence. I think you guys changed it over to services. Family violence services now. But I'm going to introduce Megan Lagoy, and she is the anti-trafficking grants coordinator with Transitions Family Violence Services. Megan has worked closely with survivors of human trafficking as an advocate, and she has collaborated with law enforcement to learn how to best support survivors. Megan has attended conferences and training to remain up to date on the best practices and procedures that prove to be victim-centered. Megan brings this experience and knowledge to her role as coordinator at Transitions. So everybody welcome Megan as she comes on. Our next guest is Shannon Taylor. She is the anti-human trafficking survivor advocate with Transition Family Violence Services here in Hampton, Virginia. Transition serves as the areas of Hampton, Newport News, Poquoson, and the surrounding area. Shannon has worked collaboratively with law enforcement, and she has attended trainings to enhance her skills to best serve survivors of human trafficking and trauma in a trauma-informed way. She is trauma-informed. I love that. It's always good to be trauma-informed. Shannon treats every survivor with compassion, respect, dignity to ensure their basic needs are met and they can reach their full identified potential. So everybody, welcome to the stage tonight. We have Miss Shannon Taylor. Come on, it's good to see you, ladies. You can go ahead and mute yourself and say hello to the people out there. I know you can't actually see them, but they are online tonight. I'm encouraging you all, if you are online tonight, to like, share, and tag with someone to get this information on out. So say hello to me, ladies, so I can hear you.
Hello.
Hello, how
Hi.
you doing? All right,
Hello.
I can hear you. All right, I can hear you. That's great. So they are on. So we're gonna jump right on in. I know. We watched all the movies, and we get this false sense of hope of what human trafficking is. And I know you all are going to give us a realistic picture of what human trafficking is, the modern day slavery, and what it looks like here in the United States, as well as here in the Hampton Roads area. So my first question that we often get is, really, what is human trafficking? And I think that's a question that everybody wants to know, because you think of what? Sexual exploitation, you think of prostitution, but human trafficking has its own defined role in what it is. And so whichever one that you all want, who wants to jump in first, just go ahead and let's tackle that on tonight. Go ahead, whoever wants to go first.
I think Shannon and myself are going to kind of do like a flip-flop. So I'll take the first one and then go from there.
Cool,
so I like how you said kind of spreading the awareness of what human trafficking really is. I know when we spoke earlier, it was just kind of breaking down the silos of, it's not like the movie Taken. It's not all like, it's some instances are, but it's not getting blindfolded, strapped in, and taken in a trunk and brought to Europe and all of that. So according to the U.S. Department of Justice, human trafficking is a crime involving the exploitation of someone for the purpose of compelled labor or commercial sex acts through the use of force, fraud, and coercion. It's important to note that any case that involves a child under the age of 18 that is induced to perform a sex act is a crime regardless of force, fraud, or coercion, and should also be an immediate contact to CPS as well. And in regards to force, fraud, and coercion, it can look different across the board depending upon what the trafficker or the trafficking situation is. A lot of the times, force can be through drug, physical force. Fraud can be a job posting as something that it's not. You think that you're coming to the US to work legally, and then it comes out that you're not working legally, your documentation is taken, and you have that force behind it.
Okay, great. Miss Shannon, go ahead, jump right on in.
Yeah, I mean, just basically what Megan said, there's a lot of little nuances that go with human trafficking. And it definitely, through my experience, doesn't look like what we think it looks like. But yeah, that's what trafficking is. Yeah.
And I know you guys talked about force and coercion and coming from a different country. And so I know a lot of times, we get those emails out there for these jobs, right? And we don't really know that they're jobs, and people are filling out this information. Are those ways where people are getting, brought into human trafficking when they're putting their personal information and soliciting to something that they really don't know anything about?
I think more so from what I've seen in a professional capacity is more labor trafficking, where they're strapped for cash, they want to make money, and it's a lot of people are trying to migrate here, so they're trying to make money to send to their family because, like, for instance, I had a survivor that was coming from another country. They couldn't work because of COVID, so they came here to send the money back. And unfortunately, they were in a situation where they were not being treated fairly and they were being exploited in that capacity. I think that it's important for anybody when you're applying to a job to always look it up and to always look up on Better Business Bureau, see what's there, see if there's anything in regards to it. And just, I don't know necessarily from what I've seen, I don't know, Shannon, if you could attest to that too, is it's more or less in regards to like labor trafficking. I feel like it's word of mouth and then just kind of like trickling down of getting people that way.
Okay.
So yeah, there are instances, but I know I just saw in the news, and this doesn't, in my experience, this doesn't happen often, but there was a woman in New York. I don't know if you guys saw like the wavy blurb. A woman in New York that was arrested on sex trafficking charges, and she had been advertising jobs either on Craigslist or something like that, saying that they were like waitressing jobs or they were like cleaning jobs. And then those people would come, and then she ended up, through the force and coercion, having them, they were sex trafficked. Now, that's kind of an outlier, but like Megan said, just do your due diligence and ask people, ask your friends, ask people you trust if it seems like a legit job posting.
You can always call the labor board, can't you? To make sure somewhere is like a legit business.
I believe so. You could call the labor board, but I was thinking about the pandemic just hit. I mean, some people are out there looking for jobs, but you think about people are looking for fast money. They're looking for fast and easy money. So if you all are saying that people are forced into doing it in labor, I can see that happening. The numbers really rising. Do you guys know of any statistics or any numbers of how many people are forced into kind of labor coercion when it comes to human trafficking?
So there's a whole website, it's called Polaris, but it's also on the National Human Trafficking Hotline. So I have one for the statistic for Virginia, and then Shannon has one for the statistic for the US as a whole. So according to the National Human Trafficking Hotline data, which was prepared by Polaris, in 2020, there was 119 human trafficking cases that were reported in the state of Virginia. However, there was 578 contacts, meaning people like had called in and reported. 189 of those 578 were calls from survivors and victims. In regards to like statistics behind it, 97 were female, 20 were male, LGBTQ plus 3, so total number of cases 119. And then the age range for that was 79 adults and 27 minors.
Wow. 79 adults and 29 minors. I'm flabbergasted by it because you would think that, wow, that's a lot of people that are forced into labor laws, and or they're coerced into doing something, or human trafficking or sexual exploitation. That's a lot of the people that's out there. What about race? Does race play a part in that? Or if they're from a foreign country, does that play a critical role in human trafficking as well?
I think from what I've seen, that human trafficking, same with like violence, like it doesn't discriminate like your ethnicity, your cultural background, your financial background, your educational background. I think that more from what I've seen is labor trafficking wise, survivors that are from another country are more susceptible because they're just so eager and just want to work that they will just take whatever, and then maybe it's not as bad as what they had from their country of origin, so it's not that bad, and they're okay with what's going on, because they might not also view it as that they're being treated poorly because they're used to much worse somewhere else.
Okay.
Shannon, would you agree? Would you add?
Yeah, I would add that so the 2020 numbers are way up because the pandemic. And so with the pandemic, yeah, people were desperate. They needed money. People weren't working. And so that desperation, those vulnerabilities, they play into how a trafficker recruits people for trafficking. But yeah, like from what I've seen, same as Megan, trafficking there's no segregation. It's not one group of people more than another. Or
okay, so it could take any nationality, any race, any socioeconomic class. It touches like the domestic violence or substance abuse. It touches all of those aspects. And I know there was a discrepancy in the number of women, children, and men, but I want to know what are, I guess, how are they coerced into it? Is it different versus for women and children or men? I know men, I was thinking maybe more they need the labor and they want to work. But how are women and children more kind of coerced into human trafficking?
Well, I think to speak from an example, right, is if you're homeless and someone offers you a warm bed and they offer you a meal or they offer you a ride or they offer you clothes, I think from what I've seen is survivors have been like, well, I don't want to stay on the street, so I'm going to do that. And then they get promised this relationship that might start off beautifully. And then it's, well, I helped you and I gave you this, so you owe me this now. And if I don't get it from you, I'm going to get it from your sister. I'm going to get it from your daughter, or I'm giving you free drugs, so you owe me. If you don't want to pay me, that's fine, but you're going to pay me back by doing like this sexual act, and like you're going to go to this place and you're going to do this and this for this many people. And then it's the keeping of the wages. So if they don't get the full wages, that's also a part of that as well.
Okay. I think
it just entangled them. Go ahead, Shannon. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to say that I think it's very important to point out that people that are vulnerable to trafficking are vulnerable populations. So people that have substance abuse issues, people that have been abused sexually or been in abusive relationships, people with mental health issues, kind of like they're definitely more vulnerable for trafficking to get coerced because they have that trauma already, and the traffickers exploit that.
And they exploit that, and they play on their weaknesses. And social media is big. Snapchat, we got Facebook, we got TikTok. There are so many forms of media out there. And I was reading an article about human trafficking, and that was one of the big things that I was reading that a lot of people get coerced into. And also I thought about when you said the homeless population, because I also, in the article, it was talking about people, hey, I'm going to get you this hotel room, I'm going to give you a place to sleep. And then it's, oh, I need you to do this, by the way. and then it turns into human trafficking. And then now we're going to let you meet somebody and we're going to take you up here, there. And so the article was just explaining how these avenues happen. I want you to kind of talk about social media, because I know a lot of children are on social media. Some of them don't have parental controls. And I know you all have heard that people think they're really talking to somebody on social media and they're not truly that person. I want you to kind of get some tips or tidbits for parents who we have online tonight, some of the things they need to look for if their children are on the phone, or some of the conversations that they may be having, and some of the things they need to look for and to watch out to see if it's borderline, maybe potentially going into a human trafficking route.
There's a documentary that's coming out as well so we work in hand with HSI and the victim specialist there. So there's a whole, there's also a preview on YouTube, but it's called Sextortion, and it talks about how the youth in America are being like extorted basically online, and that's where kids spend all their time. Like if your child's silent in the back seat, they have a phone, they're obviously doing something. So I think that it's important to have conversations with your kids about who they're talking to and like monitoring what they're doing. I think it's important that we're in a society where I feel like everyone wants to be liked and they want to have more followers, at least for like the kids that are in school, they want to have that so they seem like they are popular or whatever and all that. And then but are you adding people that you know? And then you're adding your location, you're adding that you're here with this person, or you're adding this, or you're adding a story on Snapchat where it's I'm home alone, and then you have your location. I think it's just having parents need to have conversations with their kids and not be afraid to upset their kid if they put a setting on their phone of you're not sharing your location, and just kind of having the conversation about here's why, like these are the risk factors of doing that. And I think just trying to decrease screen time, but just ensuring like not everybody is who they say they are. And it's sad that that's the world that we're in, but not everyone has good intentions and not everybody has a kind heart.
Yeah, and I think, Megan, you make a great point, because I'll see online kids will be chatting, hey, we're at the skating ring. Oh, now we're down here at Five Guys. Oh, now we're down here at PTC shopping center, or we're over here at Target. They are actually making themselves a target because they are letting people know actually where they are. And they are giving out the potential information of somebody even they may have been talking to online and they thought they knew who they were, and they are tracking their every move. You know,
Snapchat does it all day. And I know that there's one on Instagram that if you have an iPhone, go to your settings and go for Instagram, and it'll say like sharing indefinitely means that it's sharing all the time, even if you're not posting.
Wow.
So if your child has Snapchat and their location is, and they have their phone at school, well, someone now knows where your kid goes to school. So if someone wants to monitor like your kid's routine of where they go after school, what time they get home, it's not that hard if they can see, well, I'm here at this time, and I come here and then I get home, and then it's all out just wide and open.
So now they know where they live. Now they know what school they attend. And, kids like, oh, I just got home from school making a video. So now they're like, I'm home by myself. They're giving out private information via a video, and they're not even aware that they're making themselves the victim of somebody they could have potentially been online with or talking to, who is tracking their every move. And so I think those are very good points, Megan. Shannon, did you want to jump in and say something?
So yes, I did. Yes. I wanted to just jump in and say that I am a mom. Mm-hmm. And my child does partake in some social media, but I think it's important to point out. So I was worried about signing him up too young to be on social media, but kids are also on Xbox. They're also on PlayStation. There's the chats that they do. And even if they are not able to like do the Xbox Live where they're chatting with someone, then there are people that can message them on those games. And so
PlayStation too, right? I think PlayStation.
Yeah.
The same. Okay.
Yeah. So since he was young and we got him those devices, we've always had the conversation, like, don't talk to somebody that you don't know, that you haven't verified. When he would play like the sandbox games where they can go and play with people that they don't know, we usually disabled his being able to hear people talk to him and him being able to talk to people, just to like be on top of it and monitor it and to lessen those people getting in contact with him. But we've always had those conversations. Like, I think they're very difficult conversations to have with your children, because we don't want to scare our children, but we still want to make sure that they are aware and they are cognizant that there are people out there that don't have good intentions. So being able to have that open and honest communication with our children and just the youth period in our community, I think is of the utmost importance.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Are there any indicators if children are running away or if they're keeping their phones private? Are there any indicators that parents should look out for? Then they probably need to, take a look at their kid's phone, or anything that you suggest that they should do on maybe a weekly or monthly basis to check their children's social media accounts and different things that you guys would think would be helpful to them?
I think that parents should have the right to look through it. If they're paying for the device or they paid for it, they should have the ability to say at any time, I want to look through this. But I think, I know in experience, I had worked with a youth while she was in foster care, and she would leave for the weekend, come back on Monday. Every time she would leave, she would come back with her hair done, her nails done, and bags of clothes. She doesn't have a job, so she obviously wasn't making that money and doing it herself. So come to find out, it was an older gentleman that was paying for it for her. So I think it's just monitoring that, like, the cell phone or the technology that your child is using is the one that you purchased. And then just, if a child does run away, it's having the conversation of, okay, well, where did you go? Like, who did you spend the time with? Like, where were you? What happened? And just having those conversations. But I don't feel like parents shouldn't have to be afraid to at any time say, like, I want to look at your phone. And that's not to say that you don't trust them. It's just
it's safety. It is a safety feature.
Yeah.
You got to be safe. And I was reading an article and I was just shocked how, like, your social media can give away where you're at any point in location, and people can track where you are. And so that's I know we talked about parenting and children, but I definitely want you all to give me the difference between sexual exploitation and human trafficking and what that looks like.
So they go hand in hand.
Okay.
So exploiting somebody is, I looked up the definition because I wanted to make sure I told everyone the right one. So according to the Department of Homeland Security, exploitation is treating a person unfairly to benefit from their work. It can look like an employer forcing an employee to work for little to no money, or it can be a romantic partner threatening harm if the other person does not perform sex acts for money, drugs, a place to stay, etc. So they're basically the same thing, because human trafficking is gaining some kind of money, some kind of benefit from that person's exploitation.
And so how does that happen here in Hampton Roads? I know we have the ports. I know we have the trains. We have the bus system that runs up from Atlanta. Runs from here down to Atlanta, and then we got a bus system runs up to, like, going up to New York. So how is that happening here in New York when you think about the numbers and the rising cases that you said in 2020? And what does it look like for Hampton Roads area?
I mean, like, unpopular opinion, but we have the biggest, like, naval and military presence. So there's a lot of people.
And they're young. They're like 18.
The thing is it's not even like the young ones that are
really
purchasing and doing the illegal activity. But I think it's important to know, like, when you have a lot of people in one area, but even so, like, that's not to say that doesn't happen in West Virginia or that doesn't happen in Roanoke, because there's not a lot of people there. It's just I think it's when there is access to people that, like Shannon had said, like the vulnerabilities, and like you're using that and you're exploiting someone's vulnerabilities for your own personal gain, no matter where it is, that someone is going to victimize someone, then try to manipulate them for their own benefit.
Okay, you're right. And the hardest part is you got Navy, you got Air Force, you got Army, you got, so many bases and people from just all over, the world right here in Hampton Roads. So our vulnerable population and the number of people that's in this area makes this area a greater risk at human trafficking, because it can happen in any avenue and any area. And so I know we talked about trafficking, and one thing in the article that I was reading that some traffickers can be family members, and I wanted to talk about that. As you all know, I work for Child Protective Services, and a lot of time people believe it is someone out on the outside that are abusing children, but usually a lot of times it can be family members. And I want us to have kind of a dialogue about how does family members traffic other family members, and what does that look like in the concept of methods and different things that are used?
I think the biggest method is, I'm your parent, I'm telling you to do this, or you don't want us to live on the street, or you don't want this or that, and you're putting the guilt onto the child, or you're putting the guilt onto the family member of, well, like if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen, or you could come and you could get taken and you could go somewhere else, or this or that. And it's, again, like exploiting the fact that someone's not fully developed to know, like they might know like this is bad, but this is my mom, or this is my dad, or this is so-and-so that's supposed to love me and protect me, and they're the ones that are telling me like, well, I have to do this. So like,
how can you tell the difference though, Megan, between, because I've been to Target, right? And I've seen someone out there with their kids and they're panhandling. How do I know that they're just panhandling, or how do I know if this possibly could be human trafficking? I know I'm putting you on the spot right now.
I don't know, because I'm not a detective. So that's the thing where, that is a part of it. That is a part of like, go out and make this much and then don't. Like, I can't speak to that because that's not my professional realm. I think it looks different in every capacity. And if someone is like, if you're concerned, like you could always call, or you could always ask and say, like, call like Hampton PD, like in that, if it's the Target with they're right out, like you could just be like, hey, can you go talk to them and just kind of see. I think from what I've seen professionally, it hasn't been anything like that. Okay. It's just been more along the lines of, we need money and you're going to go get it for us.
Okay. And people are like, when their kids out there, they're feeling bad though. They're like, oh, let me give them $2. Let me give them $3, because you don't want the kids to be out there, versus if you have this adult that's out there. So more people are more vulnerable. Like, let me help this little kid out. Go ahead, Shannon. I know you were going to say something.
I was going to say, so the panhandlers, you can always have them call the homeless crisis hotline, but then I feel like that is a completely different live that you could do about the housing crisis and how there is no housing, and how the wait list for HUD and all of those things are astronomical, and it's just like compounding on top of compound. It's just it's a sad situation right now, but I think that's for another
segment. Maybe I'll bring HUD on next time. Look, give me the number. Let me connect with HUD. Let me talk to them.
Yeah. But yeah, it's if you see them, like Megan said, and you're concerned because there are children, you can call HPD, Newport News Police, depending on where you are. I mean, you could even reach out to CPS if you really feel as though the children are in danger and you want them to be checked on.
Okay. I mean, I know it's not necessarily panhandling. There could be other things that children are made to do. Because like Megan said earlier, I'm your parent. I'm the one. I'm telling you what to do. So I definitely want to speak to our audience. If your children are not wanting to go with this family member or in fear, having that conversation with them, and what is that about? Because they may be being forced or coerced to do certain things they don't want to, sell drugs, sell their body, doing little things for that person that's kind of coercing them. And I think this is my question, and as I was reading the article, and I forgot the number off the top of my head, and the question I had is, why don't victims of human trafficking try to escape? And maybe because I've seen in the news, and I know the news doesn't tell you everything, where they're like, we rescued 150 people and they're at this home and they're going about their day-to-day lives, but they didn't leave. They didn't try to escape, or, like Taken, that dad ran and he's trying to get her back. But what happens, or what's their frame of mindset?
I think I would spin it this way, because I don't agree with that, because I don't think that any survivor that I've worked with has been like, I want to stay in this situation, I never want to leave.
Okay.
And I think if you were to spin it as, how many times does a partner in a domestic violence relationship attempt to leave until they finally leave?
Okay.
I think that it depends upon the situation. Like we were talking earlier with Shannon about, like, someone might be used to something much worse, so maybe it's better, or they might view it as, this is less harmful if I stay here than go somewhere else, or if I'm on the street, or if I'm this. But I don't think I've ever met a survivor that's never tried to leave the situation. It's more or less, it was used of, well, if you leave, you need to find someone to replace you, or then comes the component of, well, if you leave and you owe me money, then your family's going to owe me the money. Wow. Or you owe me this, or you owe me that. And then it's the living in fear of, okay, well, then if I leave, I don't agree with that. I think that, I don't know, I could go on all day, but I think
I thought about, a lot of times, in just working with survivors, sometimes do they ask themselves, can I go back? Can I go back home? They've been on drugs and they've been abused and they have so much trauma. It's like, can I really go back to my family? Because I think about, we work with teenagers that run away. That's always their plight. I messed up. Can I really go back home? Can I really be loved? And they have these levels of trauma. And oftentimes the family is not prepared to deal with their level of trauma. And so when I was reading that article, that's what came to my mind. But I definitely agree with what you're saying, Megan. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to jump in and say, so earlier when I was saying that there's like lots of little nuances as far as trafficking goes, this is another one of them. So oftentimes some of the survivors, the victims, they don't even know or acknowledge that they are being trafficked.
Wow.
Because they feel as though, let me go back and say, like, there was one person that she claimed that she got into prostitution on her own, but then because she had a substance abuse problem, she ended up meeting up with other people, and then with meeting with those people, there was a deal brokered that the drugs would be provided, but also part of her wages that she made would be provided. So she was no longer an independent sex worker. She was now beholden to this person. And that is trafficking.
Wow.
Even though she didn't think that that's what it was, because she went into it on her own free will.
And that's what I'm thinking, a lot of times some of them go into it on their free will, and in their mind, they're like, I'm not being trafficked. I made the choice to do this. And I know you guys work with survivors on a daily basis. You both are coordinators and different things like that. Do you have any survivor stories or success stories for working with survivors and different things like that you all want to share with us tonight?
Yeah, I think just to backpedal one aspect too, another reason why it might be hard for some survivors to leave is the fear of deportation, or if they're here illegally, like what that looks like legally. If I'm told, well, you'll just get deported because I have your documents, are you going to want to leave, or are you going to want to kind of do that? And I think to kind of talk on Shannon's point too, is a lot of people, like, someone wants to do independent sex work, they can do independent sex work, but then when it becomes more than that is when someone is then controlling, like, the dates that you do, the number of dates that you do, the wages that you're getting, the frequency, where it is, and then they're taking all that wages. If you're doing independent sex work, you are your own boss. You were telling, like, you set your dates, you set your wages, and you get all that. But as soon as somebody else steps in and then dictates who the clients or Johns are, and then how much you're charging, it becomes like much more than that. I think that that's hard too, is if you look at like a criminal charge, it's prostitution, it's not. So that's where like I know that they're trying to go back in and kind of revamp what that looks like if someone is like in a trafficking situation. Like, how do we then not have it prostitution if that wasn't their choice?
Yeah, because now you're arresting, because it's so borderline. You're arresting someone that's being human trafficked for prostitution. It's almost like you're re-victimizing them again.
Yeah.
And so we're penalizing someone that's been coerced and they've been held hostage against their will, or they're doing these acts because somebody is controlling them, versus, like you said, they're doing this independent work. And so now law enforcement is like, well, it looks like, it appears to be prostitution, but actually it's human trafficking. And so we don't want to, I would say, arrest them or penalize them for that. We need to get them the services and help they need. Yeah.
That's where there's a lot of like it's more training for like TFO officers to kind of, if there is the suspicion of it being prostitution, is calling that officer and kind of getting a little bit more in-depth information of, okay, like what is behind it. And I think that comes more to like law enforcement and like NGOs and like federal law enforcement, everyone kind of talking about trends that they're seeing and how to kind of spot it better to get more accurate cases represented and more survivors getting them justice, whatever that looks like for them.
And I did want to ask about children. Are children mainly, does it come from missing persons children, or these children of family members? How are children susceptible? I know we talked about the social media aspect with teenagers, kind of this and that, but I'm talking about those 6, 7, 8-year-old children. How are they kind of involved in human trafficking?
I don't think that I have enough professional experience to speak on that, because any children that I've worked with have been like young adults or youth.
Okay.
But I would say I know that there's a whole thing about, I think it was a foster home that was doing it, or like a whole type of thing. I have to find the article. I don't know if it was a documentary on Netflix or if it was something like that, but it was like a foster parent that was doing it, which is unfortunate.
Shannon, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I don't have enough professional experience with like children survivors either to speak on it, but from the trainings that I've had and the information and research that I've seen, the foster care system is a huge source of that. Like, our foster care system in the US is kind of broken and it needs to be revamped. The system
wasn't designed to raise children.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that again is another subject for probably, there's lots of different subjects and layers, but foster care kids they're highly vulnerable to be trafficked because of the trauma. And
I learned, I was thinking about, like I said earlier, kids that are running away, some of the LGBTQI community as well. And they're more susceptible because they're running away, trying to find their place. Children who have been placed in group homes. And as you said, that have severe mental health, disabilities and different things like that, and they're unmedicated. I definitely believe that they could fall into human trafficking. I think we had one time, one child thought he was going to be a rapper. He had got in contact with somebody in New York and kind of went up there and thought he was going to, sign a contract. And after that, he was missing after that, and no one could locate him. And so I could see that because he had severe mental health, very talented, but he did, no one knows where he's at now because he went up there thinking that he was going to sign a music contract. So I think all of those things play a part in human trafficking. And
in the same sense, like juvenile detention centers, because you have kids in there that identify as part of a gang, and then it's if you are a runaway or you are growing up in the system, you want to be loved. So what the gangs do is they promote that idea of family and being loved, and it's kind of a way to then manipulate and control somebody that way too.
Okay. And I want to talk about survivors. I know you guys work with survivors. Any survivor stories that you guys have out there that you want to share with the audience. Also, audience, if you guys have any questions, let us know. Just put it in the chat. Megan and Shannon are willing to answer any questions that they are able to answer, but definitely want to hear any survivor stories that you have that you would like to provide to the audience that have been successful or that you have worked with while you all have been doing this job.
Do you want to go first, Shannon?
Well, I'm currently working with some survivors. And I wouldn't say that it's 100% successful yet, but I can see their potential.
Okay.
And I can see that if they keep working and moving towards the ultimate goal, which is their independence and being able to be stable on their own, like I can see it on the horizon for them, and maybe I'm ever the optimist. Like, maybe I am, but I can see them being successful. They're definitely making strides in that direction.
Okay.
I worked with a survivor that left our program for another program, but that program that the survivor went to was another nonprofit, which actually they work with all different kinds of populations. It's called Shelter to Shutters, and they train people either how to do like maintenance on properties, how to be like the manager at like apartment complexes, things like that. So they like take them in, they train them, they help them write resumes and stuff like that. And that person went and did that. And I mean, I feel like that's a success because
so like building their skills, you would say. Because I think it's like with any, like I talked about substance abuse, I think about working with any type of victim. It's going to take time. It's going to take work. And sometimes because they're in their mind, it's the trauma that's replaying over in their mind that you're trying to help them overcome on a daily basis. And it's not going to take that one time or two times, but having that train, getting those legal documents and helping them be able to sustain themselves and not going back, as I think Megan said earlier, into the fast money, A lot of times people don't want to work 2 weeks and get a paycheck, where they were making $300, $400, $500 in a day, where now you got to work 2 weeks and you got to make $500. For them, that's a long time to be committed to doing that. And so that retraining of the mind to say, I'm going to be committed to doing this. So I think, thank you for that, Shannon. Go ahead, Megan.
So I can say I had worked with a youth that had gone through a lot with the trafficker to the point where she had a lot of like medical needs that needed to be done. She was able to, it was kind of a good way of everyone working together that all came to the table. So like all the stakeholders of like the Hampton Roads Human Trafficking Task Force, like working together from like Commonwealths to detectives to HSI to NGO, and like everyone that had their hand in the pot working the best to serve the survivor. And she fast forward was able to get restitution. She was able to go from shelter for about like 6 to 8 months to her own apartment. Last that I spoke to her, she was maintaining a job in a school, working with children with developmental delays and loving it. She is currently pregnant, and she's in a healthy relationship now. She moved to a nicer apartment in a better area, and just kind of seeing it kind of go from like the beginning stages and seeing someone say like, I can never get there, and saying like, you can, just kind of like let it happen how it happens, and everyone's here along the way. And just knowing, like she had to go through the whole, he went to sentencing and got basically nothing. And she kind of took a couple steps back because she was like, how does someone do that to somebody and get nothing? And I'm scarred for the rest of my life, but he has maybe like a couple of years and that's it. How does he get that? And it was just kind of then helping her back through that. And then just seeing like what happened doesn't define you. Like his time doesn't define anything that happened to you. Like you spoke your truth, you had everything out there, and it's as hard as it is, like, don't focus on him anymore, because it's not about him. Like, it's about you and you moving forward. So last that I heard from her, she was doing well and she was due for her baby like a month before I had ended up stopped working where I was at. So I didn't continue the communication, unfortunately, but she was in a way better spot than when I met her. So it was helpful.
Well, that's a good, I mean, it's good that she was in a better place than where she was before, but I definitely heard you say, and I don't think we even talked about that, prosecuting the person that's doing the victimizing. Like, how does that happen? I mean, is it just our law enforcement? Is it just our system is not been built to prosecute, or is it hard to get evidence, or do survivors not want to testify? And I can understand not wanting to testify, being on the stand and having to tell your story sometimes, but I just don't understand that they don't get the amount of time, or I don't even hear that often that there is a lot of prosecution. Like I said, unless it's like, oh, we found 150 people down here in Atlanta, and then you'll hear about it, but then we don't hear about it too often.
There was actually a trial in Norfolk that I had assisted with two survivors that had to testify, and the trafficker was his own attorney. So he used it as an option to re-victimize them and have to testify. Well, he ended up getting like 24 years.
Wow.
Well, if you have, and that was bumped up to the federal level. So I think it started at state, but they had enough to bump it up. So I think it's coming down to like state laws kind of reflecting it. But then the issue too is like they're like plea deals is if there's more than one person involved, cool, you give me this person, then it will drop. Like, and that's kind of the fine line of you're getting more information, but you're also letting someone kind of get off a little bit. But that was a trial. That trial took a hot minute. And the fact that he represented himself kind of posed another thing of, you just want to re-traumatize these women for what? Like,
wow.
You ended up losing and you got more time than you.
24 years. Wow.
It should be, I think there was a whole article on it. I don't know if it was out of Norfolk. I just don't know what the article had been on, but it was 8 months ago.
Okay. Thank you so much. Shannon, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that also brings up another interesting point, another nuance, if you will, that in trafficking cases, so I can't speak 100% for how law enforcement builds their cases. But oftentimes it's, me saying that this person did this to me. And like, that's kind of how they build their case. Like, if I was trafficked, like I am technically the evidence.
Yeah.
I'm the person that has to prove to you through my words or the way I like my experiences and conveying that to you. And then that I would have to be believed by, whether there's a jury or a judge. And
so I could see why it'd be hard to prosecute, because you are basically your own testimony. You're standing on your own feet saying, this is what happened to me. And you may not get the 10 and 12 Johns that you were involved in, or if it was labor, or, if it was a family member and they were out there panhandling and getting money, there's no evidence with that, And so you're your own mouthpiece. So I can see that in essence why, and that means that it goes underreported.
Absolutely.
It goes way underreported.
I think, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, then you have to think about like, if that survivor, that victim is going to go up, like get the gumption to go up and testify, like they have to like mentally prepare themselves, even after they've had all of this trauma and all these things happen to them. They have to mentally prepare themselves for whoever is going to be judging them to not believe them.
Yeah. Now, do you all provide through transitions? Do you guys provide any services to assist survivors if they're going to, go before the courts and try to get someone prosecuted? Or do you guys just provide different type of services kind of to help them get on their feet to sustainability?
Yes, we would offer like a court accompaniment. And I think to kind of go back off of that is like, I think I can't speak to, I haven't really had a lot of experience working with like the Hampton law enforcement side, but I worked a lot with the South side.
Mhm.
And I never, anytime that I had called and said, I have a survivor that's identifying with this, they want to talk to you, they took every single thing that they said as the word of like God, and they went after it, and they treated everything like, no matter what that survivor was saying, that it was true and it was factual, and they were going to get the information to kind of then do it. And I think it's helpful when you have a team that all communicates like that, because you're talking, you're saying your court date's the state, you're all getting together, you're bringing the survivor to tour the courtroom, you're bringing the survivor to meet with the either a Commonwealth or the attorney or whoever. You're doing your best to make somebody comfortable in a very uncomfortable and what might feel also unsafe situation. So having everyone at the same table, and it kind of then proves like you're not alone, like you're not doing it by yourself. Like we're all here for you. If you need a break, you can take a break. If you need a minute, like you can take a minute. If we need to postpone, like you can do that. And I think it works well when everyone is on the same page, working to best serve the survivor. Like the case is there no matter what, but to best serve the survivor, because unfortunately, like Shannon said, it is like someone's testimony is the realest evidence that you have, because it happened to that person.
This is my life. This is my testimony.
Yeah. It's then up to law enforcement or the detectives or whoever is investigating it to then put all those pieces together and say, like, this is the testimony of what happened, but then also like, here are the other puzzle pieces to show like that this has occurred over this amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, you make valid points, but yeah, it can be definitely hard trying to put yourself on that stand, but having that support, having someone backing you up is definitely great. It is 7:52. We're almost at our time. We go to 8 o'clock. Thank you, Megan, and thank you, Shannon. I got a couple of announcements, but before I do that, I wanted to ask you, and I think you already said it, human trafficking is a community issue. And I think a lot of people don't understand that it's a community issue, but I actually want you all just to give us a couple tips as a community. What can we do to support victims of human trafficking? I know you gave us some methods and some tips to watch out for, but as a community, what can we do to ensure that our community can be safe, and what we need to look out for? Go ahead, Shannon, you put your hand up first.
Oh, yeah, I just want to say, whenever I do these community talks, I think the biggest takeaway and the most important thing is that we all need to take a minute when somebody is speaking to us to see that person, to listen to that person, and to, like I said earlier with our kids, to have that open and honest communication. And that goes for all of our situations. So if somebody is telling you that they need help, or somebody is expressing that they are in distress, that instead of brushing our, I don't want to say marginalized, because our historically marginalized populations, if we brush them aside, as we have historically done, we're doing a disservice to our communities. So taking the time to listen to people, to meet people where they are, and then to help get the resources that they need to help them, so that our community can be healthy and grow.
Okay. Thank you so much, Shannon. I mean, our community can be healthy and it can grow. Go ahead, Megan. I know you wanted to give say something as well.
I think it's just important to, I mean, with anything, is just to educate yourself. But when you're educating yourself, ensuring that you're getting it from the right spot. And I think it's important too, is, you know, to volunteer at local like nonprofits, volunteer with anyone that kind of works with any type of survivor population, because you'll see in every survivor, like it doesn't look the same. So everything kind of looks different, but I think it's important just to not have the attitude of like, well, that doesn't happen like in my community, like, or, you know, this doesn't exist. Like, this is more of a, like a foreign problem, or this is more of like a bigger city problem, or this is like, it happens everywhere, unfortunately. And that's where if you go on Polaris, it'll tell you like statewide. I think it's like the biggest, the least amount of cases. I want to say when I saw it today from 2020, the top one was California.
Wow. I can see that up and down from Mexico on up, going on up over there on the West Coast. I can see that.
I
Go ahead, Shannon.
real fast, but I know we're like trying to wrap up, but I wanted to put a resource out there. It's slightly old, but it's right here in Hampton Roads. So there's a documentary and you can access it on YouTube for free. It's called In Plain Sight, Human Trafficking.
Okay.
Yep. And it's all right here, Newport News, Hampton Roads area. And it's a little old, so some of it may be a little outdated, but I recently watched it and it was wild to see like the tunnel and to see like Newport News area and have these survivors tell their real life story.
Wow. You said it's In Plain Sight and it's on YouTube.
Yeah. So In Plain Sight, Human Trafficking.
Okay. The audience heard that, they put it out there. Yes. In Plain Sight on YouTube documentary. Yes. And I think it's good to just having awareness. If anything, being aware of what's happening and being aware of what's taking place with your children. What are they looking at? What is human trafficking? What is sexual exploitation? If you know you send your kid with no money and they coming back with their hair and their nails did and all of this, you're like, where are they getting this from? You need to start asking them some questions, and different things like that. Because they may have went with a family member and now all of a sudden, every time they're going, this is what are they doing when they're going with that family member? They need, those are the questions that need to be asked. We may be saying, oh, that family member just wants to do nice thing with them. But these things, they could actually be coerced into doing something against their will. And so I think being aware and families being aware of what's taking place, they got to ask those questions. So Shannon and Megan, you guys have been phenomenal tonight. Their website is transitions, I think FVS. .org, which is, I think, transitionsfamilyviolence.org. They have a plethora of information. Go on there, read up on it. If you have some additional questions, I want everybody to check out that video In Plain Sight on YouTube. We didn't have any questions tonight, but that's okay. I just got a couple of announcements. I'm going to bring you guys back for final remarks if you guys have anything to share, but I'm just going to come on and give the announcements and then I'll bring you right on back. So just wet your throat, get a little get your wind back as I get do a couple of announcements. So I want to thank our sponsors for tonight. We always want to thank our sponsors, which is our House of God Worship Center leaders. We want to thank our guests. We want to also thank our viewers. We also want to thank those that are online. And as far as our announcements, as always, join us for Jumpstart every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. to 7:15 and Sunday at 11 a.m. where we continue to pray without ceasing, as well as join us for our funnel cake frenzy on September the 24th. Come out from 2 to 6 p.m. Get you a funnel cake, some fried Oreos, some fish. You definitely will have a good time. Also, I want to tell you to connect with us. Download our app. You will know where we're at, what do we have going on. Just go to House of God Worship Center, download the app. We have a prayer wall, an active prayer wall that you can put up prayers. We have the Nehemiah Project and so much more, but stay connected. Most of all, I want you all to join us on Sunday, every Sunday at 11 a.m. at 2510 Build America Drive, where you do not want to miss the glory encounter. I pray that you guys have enjoyed the hub tonight. I'm going to bring Megan and Shannon back on so they can give some final remarks, and then we'll be off. So Megan, go ahead and give any final remarks or anything that you all would like to share, and then Shannon jump in, and then we will be off to next month. You all have an amazing night. Go ahead, Megan.
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. It was definitely not what I expected. So it was really nice to kind of be able to see, well, I can't see everybody, but to be a part of it and just kind of spread awareness and just kind of maybe break down any silos that were there.
Yeah, and I think what happens is you're thinking like, I'm not teaching, I'm just having this casual conversation, but it feels great to just bring that awareness and educate. We're educating our community. And so I think it's great. So thank you tonight, Megan. Go ahead, Shannon.
I just want to say the same thing. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Also, if any of your viewers or anybody has questions, go to the website. The phone numbers are on there. You can always call. And there should be an option on the phone to speak to an anti-human trafficking advocate, and that would get Megan or myself. So if you ever have questions, you were nervous or didn't want to quite ask them here in this forum, by all means, like, we're here for our community. Reach out to us. We'll be happy to help in any way we can.
Thank you guys so much. And I want to encourage you all, keep doing great work in our community. We definitely appreciate the work that you do, and it does not go unnoticed. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank our viewers. Thank you for joining us. We will be back next month for the Hub. So meet us the first Friday of every month for the Hub, and you guys have an amazing evening. Wave goodbye, guys. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.